Andrew Urquhart with you on the week before Matariki weekend, and honestly, as a nation, I think we're still getting used to Matariki. What does it mean? What did it mean back in the day? What does it mean for us going forward? Is it just a long weekend? What are some of the traditions of Māoridom that we can adopt into our family celebrations, but also into our liturgy and our church celebrations? Joining us on the program now, the Archdeacon of Tāmaki Makaurau for the Māori tikanga of the Anglican Church, Rev Dr Lyndon Drake. Lyndon, kia ora, thank you so much for your time today.
Kia ora, Andrew. It's great to be with you.
Firstly, Matariki, now we're hearing a lot about it. Of course, it is well, in some ways a new celebration, although the roots go back deep on this one. Talk to us about the tradition of Matariki, the origins of it.
Absolutely. Look, I'm no expert on this, but it of course goes back a very long time in Maori culture. It really died off mostly in the 20th century. It's part of that general fading away and really suppression, I guess, of aspects of Maori culture. So there's a sense in which it marked the new year, the turning of the year, very close to the winter solstice, and involved a bunch of different aspects of that change in the year.
In some ways, it is a harvest festival. Most cultures around the world will have a time of the year where they say, well, this is the time to harvest this or plant that type of thing. This is essentially the origins of it. And hey, like most cultures, the signs are in the heavens as to when we should be doing that.
Absolutely, and at the same time, I think we especially in my role as a Christian minister, I want to really highlight that, of course, it has a spiritual significance to it as well in its origin. So it's not just about the harvest, though you're quite right, that's common, but the aspects of remembering those who have passed away, and of the rituals and the religious aspects of it, very deeply important, and to my mind, probably not separable from the origins.
As we are rediscovering what Matariki means to us as a nation and also as individuals or families within that nation, be it from a Māori or a Pākehā point of view, what should we do with this? Any advice as to how we, I suppose, personalise it or make this part of our own traditions?
Well, my view is that we're probably figuring out what to do with like our rituals nationally, and I'm thinking really here in terms of the Pākehā world.
Yep.
Our rituals are more centered around having a holiday, getting a barbecue going, a bit cold this time of year, but those kinds of things. It's a ritual of enjoyment of life, perhaps, is the Pākehā Kiwi setting.
Yep.
And here we're finding, I would say, an interesting little bit of dissonance because we're encountering and we're seeing in public life a ritual that's very much not just about my personal or my immediate family or my friends. It's about something which has a spirituality to it. Mm-hmm. And I welcome that. There's some important things to distinguish there too, but I'd much rather be in a society where we're confronted with the reality of a spiritual world. Yep. And invited to think about what that means for us, rather than just trying to decide, is this a beach holiday or a ski? But early for skiing too. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
though? There's something deeper going on.
The spiritual aspect of it, I know some people really struggle with because there is some creation myths, some origin stories about how the stars got where they were. There's some traditional Māori spirituality involved with some of these stories. And for some people of faith, they do struggle with this. How do we get the balance right, Lyndon?
Well, the thing is, I'm not going to be there on the roof of Te Papa if they do that again this year for the hautapu ceremony, where the ritual where there's an offering made to the whetū, the stars, who are atua as well, Maori divine beings. Not that I've been invited, I should hasten to add, but the point is that there isn't something which I would see as being relevant to me as a Christian. Mm-hmm. But again, I'd much rather be in a country where the debate is around which spirituality rather than is there a spiritual world. Exactly. So I'm really happy to see this into our public life, actually. Now, where my concern is that there's a sense in which this is becoming almost like a civic religion for us, mm-hmm. that much as I'm Anglican, we're not really the established church in the same way that the Church of England is. Yeah. And so there's a sense in which this is almost without debate becoming the norm for public life. Yep. And that's probably more of a concern to me. What people do themselves I'm happy that they're expressing what is deeply meaningful to them.
Mm. The way in which this is commemorated within the Māori church, within Māori tikanga, within the Anglican church, for example, is there a place for combining these two aspects to celebrate Matariki through Māori tradition, but through a Christian lens as well? From the Māori tikanga point of view, is there a place for a Matariki liturgy?
Oh, look, there really could be. And in fact, there have been some steps towards that. I think realistically, this would best be done in a re-engagement around the church calendar more generally,
Yep.
which is very Northern Hemisphere oriented anyway. Uh, Within most of our churches, there probably won't be a great recognition of Matariki, and I don't think there has to be either.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's more of an opportunity than a necessity.
Yep.
Effectively, these are actually two different worlds. And I'm quite happy to inhabit the Maori Christian world. I don't feel a compulsion to move across into that. At the same time, like I say, I'm really happy to see this coming into our public life.
I know for some churches, for example, their Matariki celebrations will be bring what you've grown in your garden, bring it together. We're going to boil up, we're going to cook up a big feed of soup. We're going to have a Matariki celebration, thanking God for the blessings that He's given us that has grown from the land. So nothing necessarily to do with traditions or stars or those sorts of things. That is one way of celebrating that. I know there's other churches that I suppose see this as a reorientation. You talked beforehand about, hey, Northern Hemisphere traditions, they're almost the wrong way round. That the Christmas celebration is in terms of the seasons at the Matariki time of the year. This is the ideal time for a midwinter Christmas celebration. And I think the other interesting point is that when we think of the traditional Christmas celebrations, that also involved stars and wise men that looked to them as we celebrate God with us, our Messiah.
Absolutely. Now, of course, the Christmas story of the stars is one about the uniqueness of Jesus Christ, and I'm a little bit cautious about putting those things together.
Yep.
For myself. And I think both of those things you've described though are perfectly valid. I'd be a little bit more cautious about saying a harvest festival at church is a Matariki celebration, just in case that's not quite the same as what it means to most Maori who are within the traditional Maori setting.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just a bit of caution there, not from a spiritual sense, but just from a caution about offending our friends and neighbours, perhaps by that side of what could seem like appropriation.
Yeah.
At the same time, the church has always celebrated, well, always is too strong a word, but the church has traditionally celebrated harvest, given thanks to God for the food that's been provided from the earth. And these things they're not just Christian, actually, they're part of being human, I think.
Yeah.
And to engage spiritually and with the seasons is a very human desire. And so the church has historically given expression to it, and then we see it in other aspects of culture too.
I mean, you raise an interesting point, really, that as a church community, both Māori and Pākehā, we want to celebrate, we want to have togetherness there. But for a congregation where some members of that congregation are Māori, some are Pākehā, wanting to get that balance right of participating and acknowledging and respecting traditions without crossing that line of cultural appropriation. And in our attempt to do so, we're going to get some of that wrong, Lyndon, honestly.
Oh, look, and certainly my encouragement would be it's far better to look to engage well than it is to simply ignore or be reactionary against. It's just, I think it's worth being sensitive around these things. And it may well be that within your own church community, there are Māori there who can help say what's a valid expression for your group. I think it's just important to give agency to people in those settings and to find good friends. I think this is probably one of the things that I hope as part of the Māori church that we can do is to, as far as is possible, to be good friends to our Pākehā brothers and sisters in Christ, and to offer people a way of engaging with the Māori world that means that you're not quite as at risk.
Another aspect of Matariki, which I suppose for some there's a question mark around, is the point of remembering those who we have lost in the last year, those who have passed on. And I suppose even as part of our grieving process as a community, people who used to sit in our congregations who we've had funerals for in the last year who are no longer with us. but also not wanting to stray into ancestor worship, I suppose, to stay on the right side of that. Again, something that we explore together. We might not always get it right, but it's something we could incorporate, do you think?
Well, traditionally, the church has celebrated once a year a time for remembering those who have died.
Yep.
Of course, what we think has happened to those who have died is radically different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think being able to own that and preserve that is important. So I don't agree with some of my friends in the way that they are commemorating Matariki.
Yep.
They're still my friends. I'm still, as far as is possible, want to join in with them in their remembrance of those who have died. But I do think the Christian story is one that's quite different around certain areas, and one of those areas is what happens to us when we die.
Yep.
What's the hope and expectation, and so the Christian celebration of All Hallows Eve, for example,
Mm-hmm.
what's sadly become Halloween, but to my mind, rightly understood, would be an engagement with the Christian story of death and dying and the hope of the resurrection. And that to me would be another aspect which we could explore. So both of those points you've mentioned, the harvest festival side of things has a historic place in Christianity, and the memorialization of those who have died. And so too, by the way, does the Christian tradition of feasting and celebration. We're not supposed to be all dour and depressed. It's something where we could perhaps take a lesson there too, that there's a time of celebration as well.
A celebration of togetherness and the blessings that God has given us. Now, I think any excuse and opportunity is a good thing to be doing,
Exactly.
whatever time of the year it is. And let's be fair, a lot of our Christian traditions that we celebrate today, just because we've done them for thousands of years, a lot of those may have come from different cultures that are now part of the body of Christ. So honestly, we possibly shouldn't be too precious about the latest development in that regard. Lyndon, thank you so much for the work you do. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Kia ora.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.